All right, there we go. We're finally logged on. It took a little longer than normal today after I hit the go live button. This is episode 50 of Stick to Hockey. Jason Myrtetus, and a man that is we've been waiting on a couple weeks. I know you were fighting off the COVID again. You sounded
Yep.
like shit. You didn't look like shit, and you didn't feel like shit. So that's good.
No. Yeah.
So far different experience this time around than your first time because you had it bad the first time.
That's
we
true.
were hoping you weren't going to check out.
Yeah, it was funny. We talked about that, Jay. We recorded Snow the Goalie, and we talked about it, and Bundy was like, "Man, I remember. I had called Zach. I was trying to get in touch with you, and Zach was like, "Oh, Anthony might not make it. He's got COVID." And then like all these people were saying that I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to make it. And then I remember sitting in the hospital, and at the time I didn't realize how bad it was. Right, I had no idea because I'm on high flow oxygen. I actually felt okay. I wasn't on a ventilator, so I kind of thought like, I got a bad case of COVID, but I'm going to beat it. And I didn't realize how bad it was until after I left the hospital. But I'm watching the Flyers game that night, and all of a sudden I hear JJ and Jonesy like sending out their best wishes, hoping that it's really tough for Anthony right now. It's hopefully everybody's pulling forward. You want to let them know everybody's pulling forward, and I'm like, who told these people I'm dying?
Yeah.
Where did this come from? Nobody told me.
Yeah.
But as it turned out,
then you watched the game and you wanted to turn off the oxygen.
Yeah. But what ended up happening was my sister had been in touch with the nurses. I mean, she was my point of contact because it's got to remember this was at a time you weren't allowed any visitors in the hospital. Yeah. I was by myself. I had no one. My kids couldn't come. Nobody could come see me. So my sister was my point of contact. And I guess the nurses had told her how bad off I was, what they hadn't told me. And my sister had contacted my boss, had contacted Kyle Scott, had contacted Russ. And then, Russ let the Flyers know. And so like there was like this whole, and now that's why my phone started blowing up. I'm like, who's telling all these people? Yeah. How did they find out? Because I didn't tell anyone.
Yeah.
And
now it's getting built up even worse every step that it takes.
Yes.
Oh my God. Anthony has he's on death's doorstep. And yeah. Oh,
so I mean that's what it was. And so So of course, as soon as my family found out that I had COVID again, like all of a sudden everybody panicked. And I'm like, I'm telling you, I'm fine. This is nowhere close to the same thing, So it certainly was not. But it was a scarier time in January of 21 than it was in February of 23. That's for sure.
Well, we're glad you sound good again too.
Thanks.
And here's where I want to start. I want to ask you a very interesting question out of the gate here.
Yeah.
And I'm so interested to get your response. I don't even know what my answer is at this point. But to this point in the season, they're 55 games in. I think they're at 55 games last year, they had 43 points. This year, they have 54. That's almost secondary. But to this point, all things considered, the injuries in the beginning of the season, no Atkinson, no Couturier, new coaching staff, all elements here. Has this season through 55 games so far been a success?
That's a great question, Jay. I want to say, I'm going to say yes, but with a caveat.
Okay. Or how would you term it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it hasn't been successful. It has. And one of the things that, and we were talking about this on the pod too, is that, kudos to the team for getting some butts in seats. They're not selling out by any stretch of the imagination. But you remember there were games last year where there was nobody in that building. It was the worst it's ever been. And this year, there have been people going. Now, it's not selling out, but there's decent crowds. And that's because the team is competitive night in and night out, right? I mean, they're in almost every game. I mean, yes, there's going to be clunkers here and there, but that is for everybody. And the way Torts has done is he's made this team buy into a system, and it's really a defensive defense first system that tries to take advantage of opportunities offensively. And that allows them to stay in games and be able to compete and be able to hang around teams, and they play their asses off. And maybe at the beginning of the year when they were having a little bit of success, maybe teams were taking them lightly because they're like, oh, this is the Flyers. They suck, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And it kind of caught them by surprise with their compete level. But now teams are coming in and they know that they're going to get that from the Flyers. They know they're going to get a hard effort coming back at them. And those teams have to be on their best game to win. And that's the nature of it. So I look at it and say, yeah, that's successful. Players have developed, young players. There are some nice young players who've developed and become into this league and look like they're going to be good NHL caliber players. All of that is great. And I think that, so when you look at it from that perspective, where you were a year ago and where you are now, there's definite progress. And so progress, any kind of progress, is going to be good. Where my caveat comes in, Jay, is that you don't want this to be fool's gold, in the sense that you don't want to sit there and go, well, we're close, because you're not.
Yeah.
There's still a lot more that has to happen. Yes, these players can be part of an NHL team. There's no doubt about it. But who's your star players?
Yeah.
Where's your, other than Carter Hart, where's your top end?
Part.
Where's your top end talent?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not there. It's bereft. I mean, it's missing completely. Yes, there are good players, but when you look at the best players on this team and you put them on, if you were to slot them into a roster spot on a Stanley Cup contender, where'd they go? They're third line, maybe second line on the forwards. Does any of your defensemen play top pair? I don't think so. Maybe Provorov, because he can eat all those minutes and he's pretty good in his own end. But I mean, he's got some limitations in the offensive end with catching the puck and things along those, and this quick decision making. I think that he probably slots more as a second pair on a Stanley Cup team. So without a top pair defenseman on a Stanley Cup contender, without a top line or top two line player for a Stanley Cup contender, where exactly are you? You're a team that competes hard. You're a team that plays, that buys into what the coach is selling. So yes, it's successful from where it was, but you still got a large hill to climb to get to where you really want to be.
I think the key thing, though, with your caveat is that, and everything that Torts is saying publicly, he's giving no indications that they're close. You know what I mean? Like he's been so honest, like, and transparent.
1,000%, 1,000%, because that's why it was so important that the organization finally got behind him with the letter that he put out to the season ticket holders.
Yep.
That basically, without using the word rebuild or without saying we're still a couple years away, hinted at it and kind of talked around it and let you know that they finally recognize as an organization where they're at and the direction that they need to head in.
Yeah, I mean,
so that's
he used
good.
The word rebuild when I talked to him on December 23rd.
He did, but I mean that's the thing. Like there was not a unified message prior to that letter. That was the first time it was signed off on by the Philadelphia Flyers, and it wasn't just Torts talking.
Yeah,
right?
That goes out, and that's what people need to realize. Like, a lot people go, they don't communicate it with us. They don't talk. They don't tell us what their plan is, and then Torts sends out the letter, and it's communication basically to that effect. But everybody goes, "Why wasn't it the GM?"
Well,
he's the
the
spokesman right now.
And the reason being, Jay, let's be honest, the fans don't want to hear from the general manager.
No,
they don't want to. They don't believe him.
Yeah,
Torts has that. He's got cachet with this fan base, and so therefore, if he says it, they're more likely to be on board with it than if Fletcher said it. And then if it came from Fletcher, the fans would be like, "Oh, now you're saying it. Where was this last year? Where was this? What happened?
Aggressive
retool, right? All that stuff. What happened?
Yeah.
So I mean, it was smart from a PR perspective to do it the way that they did it.
Yeah, and Torts definitely is. What is success going to look like after the 82 games? I mean, there's still a good amount of runway here, and some guys need to finish strong. The notion of finding out who's who and what's what. I was talking to Bill Meltzer about this. It's not necessarily a hard deadline. For some players, they already maybe know either you're going to be part of it or you're not. And then there's other players that go, well, beyond the 82, he certainly warrants more of. I think like Morgan Frost falls into that category, where I don't know if he's going to be like slam dunk. He's part of it, but he's got to continue to make progressive steps and develop more consistency.
Yeah, and he's a real interesting cat in this conversation, right? I mean, I've been on this show before and said that I don't see it, I don't believe it in Morgan. I think he's too inconsistent. I think he's had the time now. I mean, I know he had problems in the past with the injuries and the like, but I think that he's had enough time in the league now to start to show more consistency, and I just don't see it enough. But I do see what everybody else sees. I do see when he flashes, what's the skill that he has and what makes him so appealing and so tantalizing, right?
And frustrating at the same time.
Right. Well, but yeah, he definitely needs these last 30 games or 27, whatever it is, 27 games to make a further evaluation. I don't think that the book is closed one way or another, that he's part of the future or he's not part of the future. I think that he still has time to help them make that determination one way or the other. So yeah, I don't think he's there yet. But can he get there? Sure, but it's on him.
Yeah, and maybe beyond this season for him. Some guys may warrant a look into next season. It's 82 games. It's not all decisions need to be made. It's like The Godfather. All family business is taken care of.
No, you're right. You're right. But here's the question that I have from that perspective. Okay, if you feel like you need to see more than the 82 games with Morgan Frost, where does he slot for you?
Yeah,
going down the road.
Yeah, that's the big thing, and that's exactly where I'm going next.
Right. I mean, because
you need centers.
Right. And if you're not sure if he's a second line center, maybe he's a third. I mean, I guess he could be a third line, but he doesn't. He's not
a checker.
I don't think he plays. Yeah, he's not a checker. He's not a third line guy in traditional sense. I mean, if you're going to go with a different look and you're going to try and go three lines that kind of move a little bit, and your fourth line is like a checking line, okay, then maybe he can kind of fit there, but that's really roster construction. And I don't think that that's how Torts wants to be. Like, if Torts is going to be the coach, I don't think he wants his third line to be, he wants his third line to be a checking line, right? Yeah. I mean, Noah Cates is your ideal third line center.
Yeah.
Ideal. And so where does Morgan fit? And if he doesn't fit in your top two lines, then what is giving him another season to see if he develops that become, and how does that happen? Is he back on the wing again?
Yeah, I think that ship has sailed on the wing.
What do you do? That's why I think that there's more value in him having a good final 27 games, showing that maybe he can be a regular in the NHL and using him as an asset to go in another direction. I think that would be the best case scenario for the Flyers, because I don't think he ultimately is a top six forward on a team that competes for a Stanley Cup. I think he could be a top six forward on a bad team, but I don't think he could be a top six forward on a Stanley Cup contender.
Yeah, I mean, the centers thing, because we're hearing a lot about the need for centers. Friedge brought it up on 32 Thoughts and Marek's show as well. And Friedge, when the Flyers are looking for centers, and when he says that, he's heard that. Right. He's not just pulling that out of the sky. Now, there's a couple of elements to that. Number one is, okay, if a Dylan Larkin gets to free agency, they'd be obviously interested, and he'd be a 1C. But where does Sean Couturier fit into this equation? And is he going to get back on the – because I think it's paramount, if he's cleared and everything, that he plays this year, that he gets 18 games in, so they can see him, if he can come back, stay healthy, what he is – I mean, he's going to be rusty. He's not going to be great this year. But is he going to have reliability of availability? And because you can't move forward this summer with your center position. And is that noise about Friedge saying the need for centers, is that some kind of indication on Couturier? You hearing anything there?
No, I haven't. But it's a great perspective on what Elliott's saying, that because they obviously need a number one center. Even if Couturier was able to come back, play 18 games, show he's healthy, be ready to go for next season.
You need a dynamic center. Yeah.
He's still probably better suited on your second line, right? For next season. So even if he returns, you still need that top end guy. So that's why they need a center. And then Couturier is an unknown. So really right now, what do you have at center? You have Noah Cates, and you like him, and you want him to be part of this going forward, and he's going to be. But where is he best suited? He's best suited on that third line.
Yeah.
So when you say you're looking for centers, plural, obviously you're looking for a top end guy, and you might need a second guy, right? So
Kevin Hayes is in the center here anymore,
right? And you might be willing to take both. And if Couturier comes back, well, then you have excess of riches, right?
Yeah.
And then it's great. Okay, now we have depth down the middle that we didn't have before. And if Coots can't be what he was, okay, well, that's unfortunate, but at least we have two guys that we know can play in those top two pair. Yeah. So I think that's why they're looking for centers, plural. But they need them, and not only do they need, I mean, they need wingers too. I mean, let's be honest about it. I mean, TK has fallen off, big time.
13-game drought,
and I don't know where it came from. I don't know why it happens with him. We saw this the last few years, and we thought maybe Torts was able to pull out the better part of him and get him to be that guy that we thought he could always be. And then all of a sudden it just hit. And maybe he just struggles getting out of these kind of funks, right? Maybe that's,
I think he's hit a wall, Ant, because I mean, he's doing more. He's an all situations player now.
Yeah.
He's killing penalties, which are hard minutes. I think he just hit a wall in the season. And because, with him, and, he met with Danny about moving to the middle more and getting to the middle of the ice with the puck more. He hasn't been doing that. And to me, that's a sign of fatigue, mental fatigue. I mean, all the penalty kill minutes, all the top power play, all the 5-on-5 situations, playing over 20 minutes, 21 minutes a night. I think he's just hit a wall that he's never kind of encountered before as a pro with just all the usage.
Yeah, I think that's a very, very good assessment. And that's the reason why you don't, he's not a guy you look to get rid of, because you say, okay, now he knows what those rigors are going to be like. And next season he needs to, we need you to do that much more to be ready for it. You need to get yourself mentally and physically prepared to deal with this because this is the kind of workload you're going to have.
I think it's a big mental thing too. I agree with you. I think it's, you hit a wall mentally there, and like he came in and, they lauded about the conditioning that he came in with, but I think it's one of those situations where you didn't know what to expect playing all of these all of these very key roles to prepare yourself mentally for it. And you can kind of prepare and pace yourself in a way mentally. And we know he plays on a high motor.
Absolutely. That's absolutely the case. And and so when you have that situation happen, I think it's kind of, where he is, right? I mean, he needs to, he's still young. I mean, people forget that he's still kind of young. He's been in the league for a long time, but he's 25 years old, right? So he's still young, and you are going to have those moments where you learn a little bit about yourself in your development of your game
as you come into your prime,
right? As you're coming into that prime. So I think next season, now that he knows that this is what is going to be his responsibility, he needs to show that he can do that over the course of an 82-game season and not have it hit the wall.
Yeah,
right.
He needs help too. I mean, this team struggles to score so much. There was so much on his plate. It's absurd.
Yeah. I mean, to think that you're leaning on Travis Konechny and Kevin Hayes to be your go-to offense.
Yeah,
they're
40
those
plus
guys
goal
are,
pace guys. All of a sudden, they're not.
Yeah, I mean, they're supposed to be secondary scorers, right? I mean, that's what they really are supposed to be.
Yep.
I mean, you may be paying Kevin Hayes to be more than that, but let's be honest, what he really is. And Konechny, I think, can be a second line winger. I think that's totally fair, and I think that's where he probably ultimately belongs. But you're putting the pressure on him to be the best offensive player on a hockey team, and he's not that. He's just not that. And so, if you bring him back in that situation next year, give him some help, and then say, now let's see you handle this. And if we get to halfway through the season next season and we're hitting the same wall again, and it's a problem again, then maybe you say, okay, maybe this guy is not what we need him to be. But you don't do it now. You don't say, he's hit the wall, he's never going to be better. I think that you still give him that chance moving forward.
He's earned it.
He's earned it. And so therefore he's not a guy that you try to, I think you look at him and say he's definitely part of the solution moving forward, at least for the first year or so of the solution. Right. And then maybe it's longer, but let's wait and see.
Yeah. Because if you can get some other talent here and you don't have to have that reliance on him, then you can deploy him a little bit more, be more, more keen on how you deploy him, not in every high stress situation, and give him some support. And if he gets the support, that could help a lot. I think so. But again, requires acquiring some high-end talent, either via the draft or free agency or some kind of hockey trade this summer. And do you get a sense that you talk to a lot of people, the organizational direction, is everybody on the same page and how, this team's going to move beyond this season? And, Cutter Gauthier is a guy, I think he should go back for another year. Matty Beniers went back. Owen Power went back. These are Power's a number 1 overall. Beniers is a number 2 overall. They went back to win a national championship. It's not any kind of slight on the player, but do you feel like the organizational direction is kind of everybody's in concert, if you will?
No. I don't. I mean, no, I'm serious. I mean, I don't. I don't feel like everybody's in concert. I think that they're starting to get more in concert, but I still think that there's a difference in opinion on how to go about doing what they have to do. I think there are some people who want to take a slower, longer path, and there are people who feel like it can be expedited somewhat.
Someone a microwave, someone a slow cook.
Yeah, and I think that's that. But the good news is I think that they've all come to the realization that you can't keep doing what we've been doing, and that's try and put Band-Aids on it and get into the playoffs and see if we can't make a run. I think they got caught up in the 1920 season, what happened that year and how they were playing, and thought, darn, we're close, right? We were 1 game from the conference finals. We're close. And it just carried on a little bit too long. They needed to recognize a little sooner that they weren't as close as they thought. And they didn't. But I think now you're starting to see that, okay, maybe they all realize that, but now the question is, how quickly can you turn that around? And there are some people who think it takes 5 years. There are some people who think you could do it in 2.
Well, every situation's different.
It's probably somewhere in between, right? In all honesty,
yeah.
It's probably somewhere in between. It's probably 3 to 4. But I think they all need to kind of get onto the same page with that next. And it doesn't matter. Trade deadline, I don't think it's a big deal. I know a lot of people make a big deal out of it. It's a time for rentals, right? I mean, yes, if the Flyers can get out from under a contract, that's a huge win. But if they don't move a big I mean, obviously JVR, that's the one, but I mean, he's a 1-year guy anyway, so it doesn't make a difference. If you get a draft pick, if you get a 3rd round pick for JVR, awesome. If you get a 2nd round pick,
conditional second, I think is where it ends up.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be a 3rd, but depending on either how he does or how far the other team goes in the playoffs, it could get bumped to a 2nd. And I think that
certain teams, if he re-signs there too,
could be. Yeah, that could be that could be a condition as well. So I think all of those things are about right. But other than that, I mean, what's the deadline? The deadline in the NHL has really just become
hype.
It's all about trading for rentals.
Yeah,
it really is. It really
and
is.
They very rarely work, Ant.
I know. It's so really the off season is the time.
That's to reset the roster.
Nothing exciting is going to happen here. Like I said, if you get an extra draft pick, great. If you blow out a contract somehow, some way, all the better. But like I look at a guy like Hayes, for example, right? Let's just take him as an example. Even if you're willing to eat part of his contract, the fact that you're not allowed to change how much of the contract you're allowed to eat each season,
yes,
is stupid, handcuffs. Right? Yep. It really handcuffs you, because if you're the Flyers, you look at it and say, okay, well, we can get out from under this contract, but do we really want $3.5 million of dead money for 3 more seasons?
Yeah, it's like the Carlson deal too. Same thing.
Yeah, I don't know if I really want to do that. Like, that's too much. That might be too much. And I know the cap's going to go up eventually, and that dead money becomes less and less. But at the same time, when you're trying to
dead money,
it's dead money, right? It's still dead money, and it's not about the actual physical, dollars, because Comcast has got bazillions. They don't really care in that regard. It's the fact that you actually have to manage this on a salary cap scale.
Yeah.
So that's part of the problem. I mean, and so that's why it's going to be so hard to move his contract at the deadline. But you get to the off season, that's a more palatable contract to move.
Yeah.
Teams might be more interested at that point. So it might make I think you're going to see the Flyers.
They also have more knowledge in the offseason, Amp, because they know X players retiring, or we're planning on moving Y player, you know, and not only that, but
more teams might be interested.
Bingo. That's the big thing. You know, at the deadline, you have only a few teams that are interested and can fit it within a season, you know, and then in the offseason, when you're resetting your roster and resetting, you know, your organizational path, you can get way more teams involved, which is why, like, you know, people say they need to trade Provorov off the deadline, get what they can for him. I'm going, first of all, be careful because this is a guy that's available all the time, eats a ton of minutes. How are you plugging the hole? Are you just moving Cam York to the left side? You know, is he a top pairing left side defenseman? I don't know that. So there's a lot of, you know, you got to consider all these things. I know it's the easy thing to say, you know, like get rid of everybody, you know, trade them all.
That's an honor, huh? Are you doing that?
That's no homage to him in his last day tomorrow.
Yeah.
But you know, the big key here is going to be roster construction and how they move forward, and you know, getting rid of guys. You got there's a cost per replacement too. You can't just, you know, chuck guys in there and expect to advance. And you know, you got to start moving incrementally right now. Like we started off and said, so far this has been progress. But you got to continue show. You can't go progress, step back. Can't do that. Or you lose the room, you lose the players, you lose the fans yet again. So those are all parts of it that you got to keep moving forward here with this and how you build it. And I had Torts yesterday. I taped him for today's Flyers Daily. He's on. And, you know, I asked him about, you know, this time in the year, the psychology of, you know, the dog days of the season and preventing slippage. I thought that they really played poorly in a lot of that Seattle game. They ended up losing 4-3. They played them tonight. But I also, you know, they had a couple of roster moves, and they recalled Sam Ersson. Now, Grosnick is back and available for the Phantom, so I think that's the key element of it, number one. But I asked Torts about Sam Ersson and now carrying 3 goalies, because we know 3 goalies is not ideal. There's only 2 creases in practice, and it's not like having an extra winger or something like that. So I'm going to play this for you and get your thoughts on what Torts had to say regarding having 3 goalies. The 3 goalies on this road trip.
Yeah, I'm going to leave it up to Dilly. Urs is here. I think Urs, if I don't play Carter, Urs will be the guy that I consider him our backup. I think Urs has been our best goalie, quite honestly, right on through camp. Now we've got some health going on down there with Grosek coming back. Not, you know, and with Sandy, I just don't think he's played well enough. And I think Urs deserves to be the number 2 guy. He will be the 2 guy, and Dilly will figure out divvying up the practice time, but amongst the 3 goalies, but making sure he takes care of 1 and 2.
For Felix, it's just that one goal, right? Torts that you, like in the Seattle game, you don't like that 4th one because he just doesn't regain his feet.
Yeah. He's such a good kid. He works so hard, makes great saves. But I just don't think he's made enough saves. And met with him after the game, told him the situation because I didn't want him to get blindsided with a transaction. And, you know, he handled it well. You know, he wants to play, but the reason why he has struggled getting wins in the National Hockey, it's just getting a few more minutes out of him and making a key save at a key time.
All right, so there's Torts talking about Felix Sandstrom and Sam Ersson, and Ersson is the number 2. Shocked to hear that?
No.
Verbalized, though?
Well, no. I mean, I'm not. I think it became pretty obvious, right, Jay? I mean, over the holidays when they sent Sandstrom down for a conditioning assignment and let Ersson stay as the backup, right? I mean, I think that was indication number 1 that they looked at Ersson as the better option behind Carter Hart.
And he gets sent down for 2 reasons. A, because he doesn't have to clear waivers, and Sandstrom does, and they had the injury to Grosnick. And B, you know, you look at the situation and you go, we have to send him back down. He needs to play more.
Right.
He didn't play a lot last year.
For sure. So the one thing that I'm trying to figure out is, you know, why they feel Sandstrom is a guy that they just kind of need to keep around, other than the fact that, you know, you don't have a lot of experience down with the Phantoms. I get that, right? But is Sandstrom at 1-8-1 or whatever the hell his record is, and the bad numbers he put up, if you were to put him through waivers, do you really think that someone would take him at this point? I don't know. I mean, maybe they would, but I'm not certain that that's a gamble that's not worth at least taking.
I think they will take it when they return from the trip. But the thing is like, I don't know what the other 31 teams, like, is Columbus going to trade Korpisalo and all of a sudden they need another goalie and they know they're going to move him?
Yeah, maybe you hold on until after the deadline. Yeah,
I mean, the thing is you go, but you can't keep him here another 2.5 weeks. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like you can't just sit around and, these teams, you can go from being set organizationally at goalie to not being set really quickly.
Yeah, no, for sure. But I mean, I'm saying that if you feel like he is not ready, I mean, he needs more work to get to where he needs to be an NHL backup, because that's probably his ceiling, right? At this point, Felix Sandstrom, at best. Then I think it's worth taking the shot of seeing if you can get him through waivers. And if you lose him, you lose him. And you're right. I mean, yes, one injury can blow things up, but it's not like you're competing to win this year and all of a sudden it's like, oh, what are we going to do? We lost a goalie. Okay.
Yeah.
So you go pull somebody off the scrap heap,
the detriment's not there.
Right. There's no detriment. So I don't know. So that's the one thing that I'm trying to wrap my head around, where Felix Sandstrom fits into this equation moving forward. Like, why jump through these hoops? They obviously think that there's a reason to keep him and a reason to protect him from being claimed by another team. But is it really to just say, well, we don't want to be in a situation if somebody gets hurt that we don't have another body?
Yeah.
Because that's pointless. You could sign somebody for a minor league contract and just play him at the Phantoms. I mean, if you have to. I mean, that's just.
I also think they want to keep Ersson available for the Phantoms playoff run.
I get that, but you can always send him down if need be.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it doesn't matter who your backup is at that point. If it's April and you have 3 games left, does it matter who's sitting behind Carter Hart on the bench?
No, it might be me.
Right, that's my point. So it really doesn't make a difference. So there's got to be something else to this.
Now, would I be a sign that they're tanking? I'm the backup.
By the way, do you know who the in-house emergency goalie is?
There's 2 now.
There's 2?
I know one of them. I don't know the other guy's name, but Justin Kolowakowski is the one. He played at Colgate.
Okay.
He's originally from Minnesota and went to play at D1 at Colgate. Is my beer league fill-in for many years as well. When I can't make it, I would call him up and he would sub for me. And he lives in the area, so yeah, he does half the games and the other one does the other half. He's gotten dressed a few times. Justin has.
Yeah.
But he has not obviously gotten into a game. But he's a good guy, good goalie too.
Yeah. But I mean, so that's what so that's the one thing, Jay, that I'm really just trying to still piece through, like what their whole MO is here with Sandstrom.
Yeah. Let's wrap up on these 2 subjects. We'll talk about deadline real quick, potential guys to be moved, and potential call up as a result of that. So deadline, obviously, we talked about JVR last year of his deal. Very likely you'll eat some money to get the peak return that you can get. Braun, I mean, he's played so little, so you're not going to really. But there seems to be some conversation around Nick Seeler that a lot of teams are interested in. He's had a really good year. I mean, considering he's making under $800,000 a year, he signed beyond this year too. And I mean, even if he's making that money and he's year 7, you have no problem with that.
Right.
He's a guy that plays hard. And, the term was out there that I think it was Dave Pagnotta and Anthony DeMarco that reported that they would have to be pseudo blown away by a deal for him. Now, that's not saying they wanted number 1 in the 2023 draft unprotected for Nick Seeler. It's blown away by, his level.
Right.
So, I mean, if you got a 3rd or a 4th, then you could see moving. Yeah, you take it. But other than that, is a 5th round pick and a guy that's got a 4.5% chance worth it when you got a player that's that cheap that's giving you minutes
and has value has value because he's familiar with your team, he's familiar with your coaching staff and with the system that you have in place. Does a 5th, like you said, does a 5th round pick or later benefit you more than that? And the answer is absolutely 100% no.
Yeah.
It's just not. So why make the move? Like that doesn't make any sense. Especially like you said, you can bring him back next year for a song, right? I mean,
well, he's signed for next year too. I think so.
That's what I'm saying. You can bring and he's back for a song. And even like you said, even if he's not in the top 6, he's a valuable depth guy to have for
Absolutely.
sure.
Yep.
So yeah, you have to get. But then again, they got a 3rd round pick last year for Justin Braun, which floored me a little bit. So
well, he's the right side too. That's the other.
Yeah, yeah. So look, if you get a 3rd round pick for Nick Seeler, fine, then you do it.
Yeah.
But then
see you, Nick.
But other than that, I don't know. 4th round, you probably I waffle. I waver a little bit. I say maybe not. Depends. I have to really think about it. But anything below that, no, you keep him.
Yeah. What about Patrick Brown? He's another guy on an expiring deal. Could be center depth, PK depth for a team, but again, the return's not going to be significant.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead. I'm good with that. I don't think he's part of the future.
The other guys we kind of tipped on this, I think, are more off-season potential moves.
Yeah.
Here's the guys that I listed. I listed 6 guys as potential off-season hockey trades.
Mm-hmm.
Provorov, Konechny. I don't want to move Konechny, but he's on that list. Sanheim, Tony DeAngelo, Kevin Hayes, and Morgan Frost.
DeAngelo is a guy I would, if you could find a way to get something for him at the deadline, I would consider it.
Yeah, because he's got 1 year after this.
It's only got 1 year after this, and I think that there's value to his game, even if he makes a lot of boneheaded mistakes at times.
His mistakes are high event.
Yeah, but there's a lot of value to his game, especially for a team that's contending. Man, he really helps the power play. He moves the puck well. So,
yep.
Yeah, so I think that there's value there. I mean, he's a guy, if you could get something for him at the deadline, I would certainly consider it. And if not, then yes, I would look to. I could see you moving him going into next season because it's only he's only got a year left and it's palatable for teams to take that on. Provorov, we know we've had that discussion a million times. I do think that there's going to be some movement there eventually, in some capacity. Sanheim, I think that ties to Provorov, right? I mean, if Provorov goes, then you're probably keeping Sanheim.
Yep.
Especially because of that contract. I think that limits you a little bit. I'm not certain how many teams would want that term, even though the money's not awful. I think that the term is just long. It's a lot of years to commit to a guy that's a second pair guy, right?
He had a season commensurate with last year. He would have got that on the open market, but the one less year, obviously. But he would have got that on the open market based on what's on the market and what he's been.
Yeah.
But he's been erratic this year.
Yeah. Konechny, we talked about. Who else did you mention?
Hayes and Frost. Hayes we kind of talked about too.
Yeah.
I mean Frost we did too. But those are the potential guys I see. I don't see like Tippett or.
No, I like what Tippett's done this year.
Cates, no way. Torts loves him.
Torts loves Cates. And Lawton's basically your captain. He's your de facto captain, right?
Yeah. Wade Allison.
Yeah. I mean, that's fine. I mean, Allison's he's a guy. But no, I like Tippett. I think Tippett's done a nice job this year. I think he's had a couple of stretches of inconsistency, but for the most part, he's been pretty good. And I think he also slots in again, as a guy who can get you 20 to 25 goals a season and, be a useful player in your lineup. So, I mean, there's good there. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, when you look back at the Giroux trade now, you don't cringe.
No, it's not. It wasn't a terrible trade. I mean, you're gonna get a first round pick and a guy who's going to get you 20 to 25 goals a year for him going to Florida for 20 games in a playoff series.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, Florida's the gaff here because they traded for him and didn't keep him, and they won the President's Trophy, but that doesn't go on your mantle.
Yeah, exactly.
Couldn't get out of the first round. And then the likely call-ups. I mean, Brink is a guy that missed a lot of this year. I think they want him to get him as much games and as many situations down there as possible. So maybe at some point towards the end, you get a look at Brink again. Yeah. But Tyson Forster's playing a lot of situations down there. He doesn't make sense here now, but maybe after the deadline, if JVR goes, he could make sense.
Yeah.
If you trade Patrick Brown, maybe Denoye to play fourth line center.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that, there's been a lot of, they've liked him now for a little bit. And I think that
he's playing well.
Yeah, he's played well for the Phantoms too. I think that they want to give it a shot. So
I think he's got 17
I do think
goals.
I do think you see him. I do think you see him come up this year after the deadline. Yeah.
Yeah, and then Lixell's obviously in that mix as well.
He's already here.
Yeah, and Ronnie Attard, if they were to trade a right side, if they were to trade a guy like D'Angelo.
I talked to a scout earlier in the season who is high on Ronnie Attard, who thinks that he's going to, really fit into a good role in the NHL, and thinks that he's going to be a good player. Again, not top pair, but he's going to be a guy that you can rely on to play, solid minutes and not make a lot of mistakes.
Yeah, no doubt. So, we'll see where it goes. We'll see how it plays out, but certainly a lot of angles for discussion on Snow the goalie. How's everything going on the pod? How's Russ doing? I know he had another kid. Is that his fourth?
That's his fourth.
Jesus,
it's his fourth.
Cut your balls off already.
He's now surpassed me and Bundy because he's tied Bundy. He surpassed me. I have 3. Bundy has 4. So he's tied Bundy. I think he just wants to. I keep saying you're going for the lead, right? I said you blew past me. You tied up with Bundy. I think you're going to go with you put the basketball team together. He said, not going to happen. I said, yeah. You also told me it wasn't going to happen after 2. Yeah. Now you have 4. So number 5 is going to happen at some point.
I'll tell you, I'm never going to catch him. I'm not punching that clock back to 0 to go to diapers and all that bullshit.
Jay, you know why I have 3 kids, right?
Why is that?
Because I don't want 4.
Exactly.
I've been saying it for 21 years.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I've been saying for 21 years. I have 3 kids because I don't want 4.
Yeah, I'm good. I got the 3, and I'm good there. And great stuff. Check out Ant's work on Snow the Goalie, the podcast. Also on Twitter at SanFilippo, Crossing Broad as well. You're a multimedia star, and we appreciate it, brother. Be well.
Yeah, anytime, Jay. Love talking hockey with you.
There he is. Anthony SanFilippo joining us on Crossing Broad. Great stuff, and always love talking to him. Glad he's feeling better and back in the equation, and that's always great news as well. But right now, on Thursday edition of Stick to Hockey Live, episode 50, we got a little something. We're going to make you some money. How about that? A little something we call Tones Takes. Stick to Hockey Live. How about Tones Takes? Tone, how we doing?
Good, Jason. How you doing?
Good. Got an interesting card tonight in the NHL. Anything really popping out for you? Because I know Ovi's out tonight with the passing of his father, so condolences to him. But no Ovechkin, and they got an interesting matchup tonight.
Yeah, they play Florida. Big game. Florida's 2 points behind Washington for a playoff spot. So actually, there's 2 plays I like in this game. First, I'm going to go with Florida to win, minus 120. I like the way their second half has looked after the All-Star break. They won 3 of 5. Bobrovsky is in the zone right now, and as I know, when that guy gets hot, he's hot. He has a .951 save percentage in his 4 starts. Gave up 1 goal in 3 of them, and then the other one was 4 against Colorado, but he got peppered with 49 shots on goal. Florida's coming off that St. Louis game, 6-2 loss the other night. Well, they had played St. Louis, but Spencer Knight is just the kid's having a horrible year. Unfortunately, they got to get him right. But I really like Florida tonight. I know Bennett's out for Florida. Caps, they've had injuries all year long. As you mentioned, Ovi's out, Dowd is out, Carlson's still out, Hagelin's out, Wilson's out. So I kind of like Florida to kind of grind out a win here, and at minus 120, I think it's a good price on them.
Yeah, when you look at the Panthers right now, boy, they're in a dogfight right now, Tone. This is like shit or get off the pot time for them, because they're 2 points back of that final spot. And the team that they're battling for wild card 2 is the opponent tonight. That's the Caps. So that's a huge 2-for-1 game tonight down there with Florida. Kuznetsov, and you like him tonight, I know, with a shot total. And he's a guy that will fire the pill. Incredibly talented offensive player, but you like Kuzi tonight?
I do. Over 2.5 shots on goal, plus 136. I mean, I think this price is outrageous.
With Ovi out, right?
With Ovi out, yeah. He's hit it in 4 of his last 5 games without Ovechkin, dating back to last year. 2 times this year, a couple weeks ago against Vegas, he had 3 shots on goal. And then the other night against Carolina, who's a tough opponent, because their puck possession, he had 4 shots on goal. So, and he also had 8 against Florida in the earlier meeting this season, which was a 5-2 Florida win. So at plus 136, I think Kuzi is a great look. He's second on the team in shots and second on the team in attempts. So I think this price is it's a great price on him, and you can find value on these shot on goal props if you dig into stuff like this. I mean, I personally I don't lay juice on these, even if it's like minus 110. It's just not what I do. Always look for these plus prices, and this is a great one here, I think.
Yeah, and when you're on a team with Ovechkin, you're never going to lead the team in shots on goal. You just
exactly.
there's games where he has 10 or 12. It's insane.
I know.
but that's why he's chasing down Gretzky for the goals record too, because he can shoot it with incredible, precision, and it's a bomb as well. So Kuznetsov over 2.5 shots on goal at plus 136. I love that play. You actually like a play tonight on the Flyers. It's not technically a home and home tone because the Seattle team had a game on Tuesday in Winnipeg where they lost in the shootout. They had a pretty rough road trip with the exception of the game against the Flyers, but that brings a little revenge for the Flyers on the road here. And I always am really weary of a team returning home out of time zone on a long trip and that first game back home. So you like the Flyers getting a lot of value here.
I do. Flyers plus 170. I love this spot for them. Revenge, short-term revenge, right? That's the best kind of revenge. They just played on Sunday. I like doing this a lot, like especially in these East-West games. Like if one team wins, one game, back the other team to get some revenge. Especially now when it's not even it's under a week, a week in between games. So Carter Hart should be back in goal tonight. I know Urson is back with the team, but either way, like both have been solid this year. Flyers actually have a better record on the road than they do at home. Seattle has a worse record at home than they do on the road. So, and I mentioned last week, I think Seattle is going to be a fade here in the second half, and they've already fallen a little bit. So I like the price on the Flyers here, plus 170, especially with this team, the way Torts has them playing. They're in every game. I think they went out to Seattle last year, and they won in Seattle as well. So I think the value is in the Flyers here. So plus 170, I'll definitely give them a look.
No doubt. And they're coming off a game where it was one of those games this year. I don't think we've seen a lot of them, Tone, where the team, other than the first 5 minutes of the game and maybe a little bit in the third because they got a lot of shots to Grubauer, but they didn't have the same level of intensity. Torch talks about the standard, and they didn't have it in that game. So maybe it's 3 and 4 because of that, and the emotional games and tight games against Edmonton and Nashville led to that. But I expect them to come out with their hair on fire tonight and get back going. And TK, hasn't scored in 13 games. He's got to get back on the board. Didn't have a shot in the last 2 games. That's the problem. He's got to work to the inside and get the puck to the net. So we'll see what they do tonight in Seattle. It's going to be an interesting game out there. They kick off a 4-game road trip. Tone on the year at dimers.com. NHL props plus 41.19 units. Goalie props. I love this. How about that? And then you got the totals plus 20.72 props. So, and 49.46 units plus side on the year. People get your stuff at Dimers, and where else?
Yeah, every day on Tones Takes at Twitter. Daily plays. I'll have more later on today as lineups get confirmed. Actually, mentioning the revenge part, I mean, I kind of like New Jersey tonight too, so I'm going to look to be on them in the same way. Just waiting to hear if Jack Hughes is back in the lineup or not. So more plays later on.
Yeah, he's a slightly key component. They got the St. Louis Blues tonight. He's been unbelievable. Tone, thanks for doing this. We'll talk next week, and cash him in, brother.
Thanks, Jason. Appreciate it.
All right, there he is. Tones Takes, another edition here on Stick to Hockey Live. So that's going to put a wrap on episode 50. Flyers in Seattle tonight. They've got Saturday, they've got Vancouver Flyers after dark again. And then on Monday, late afternoon game, 4 o'clock in Calgary, and then 9 o'clock in Edmonton to take on the Oilers. So a lot of hockey coming up. We'll join you next week for more great hockey content on Stick to Hockey Live. Everybody, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Leave us a nice 5-star rating and review. We would much appreciate that. That'll help other hockey and Flyer fans find this podcast as well. So everybody, have a great day. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you next time on Stick to Hockey.